who's going to be the NFL MVP throughout the season, and who's the currently NFL MVP right now, 67% of people say that Patrick Mahomes is the NFL MVP right now. 33% says Jalen Hurts. No votes for Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. I think that's very, very interesting. I can't believe that Lamar or Josh Allen didn't get any votes. That is surprising because I think this MVP race is closer than what many people think right now. Jalen Hurts got 33% of the votes, and Mahomes got 67%. Not a single vote for Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. I'm surprised. I'm very, very surprised. So, right now, these are the 4 leading candidates for NFL MVP. And we know this is a quarterback award. No one's going to win this award besides a quarterback. No matter how great of a season some of these great defensive players have had in the past, Aaron Donald, TJ Watt, this is a quarterback award. And so far for this season, let's start off with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's completing 65% of his passes. He has 37 carries, 316 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. He's averaging close to 9 yards per attempt. So Lamar Jackson is helping this Ravens rushing attack because he's so dynamic as a playmaker and with the ball in his hands. That's what makes Lamar different than these other elite quarterbacks. He's able to make plays with his legs, and he's electrifying in the open field. You can't defend against Lamar Jackson without having a linebacker spy on him. And even that is an issue for opposing defenses because more times than not, if you have one-on-one against Lamar Jackson in the open field, Lamar is going to win that matchup. He's going to win that matchup. So when you game plan against the Baltimore Ravens, not only do you have the game plan for Lamar Jackson's arm, but you got a game plan for Lamar Jackson's legs as well because he's such a dynamic playmaker in the open field. His team record is 2-2 on the season. So coming into the season, the Ravens, they beat the New York Jets 24-9. Jets are the Jets. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL, despite what their records currently says. They're not a very good football team. Lamar and the Ravens took care of business against the Jets. Week 2, the Ravens defense allowed Tua Tagovailoa to look like a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. The Ravens had a 35-14 lead heading into the fourth quarter against the Dolphins in week 2. The Dolphins outscored the Ravens 28-3 in the fourth quarter. And in that game, Tua had 6 touchdowns, 469 passing yards. He went 36 of 50 overall on his pass attempts. So that Ravens defense so far in the first 4 games of the season, they've been awful. They have been awful, and they have not represented the Ravens' legacy when it comes to defense. Because in years past, the reason why the Baltimore Ravens were contenders year in and year out was because of their elite defense that had Ray Lewis, that had Ed Reed, that had Terrell Suggs. And for whatever reason, this Ravens defense is arguably the worst defense in the NFL. Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, he has been awful this year as a coordinator overall because he keeps calling these blitz packages in key moments in games, and the Baltimore Ravens are the worst team in the NFL when they blitz. They're the worst team in the NFL when they blitz. And so that's been the biggest issue this year with the Baltimore Ravens overall. Lamar Jackson has done his part. That Baltimore Ravens team overall, offensively, they've been one of the best teams in the NFL. So far this season, the Ravens haven't scored less than 20 points as an offense. So this team is Lamar Jackson's team moving forward. And back in the day, the Ravens' strength of their team was their defense, and they just prayed that Joe Flacco didn't make mistakes, and he managed the game and made a few key throws late in football games for them to win games overall. But the strength of their team in the past was their defense, and now the strength of their team is their offense. And what's crazy to me is the Ravens defensively, they have individual on that defense to help them be a better defense overall. And it just hasn't happened so far this season. They got Calais Campbell up front. You got Travis Jones as well. At the linebacker spot, you got Patrick Queen. You got Josh Baines. In their secondary, you got Marcus Peters. You got Marcus Williams, Marlon Humphreys as well. So I don't understand with the personnel that they have why they're such an awful defense. I don't understand that. But that's the biggest reason why they're 2-2. And they are ruining Lamar Jackson's chances at winning NFL MVP because they can't hold on to leads. They gave up a 20.1 point lead to the Dolphins. They gave up a 17-point lead to the Bills. So Lamar Jackson, he could easily blame that Ravens defense for the reason why he's not the leading candidate in the MVP race. Let's switch to Josh Allen. Josh Allen for the season got 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 1,227 passing yards. He's completing 67% of his passes. Quarterback rating of 101.1. The Bills, their record is 3-1 on the season. I thought the Bills were the best team in the NFL in the first 2 weeks of the season. They beat the Rams, the defending champs, week 1 in LA, 31-10. And then in week 2, they manhandled Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans in Buffalo. And then even in week 3, they lost to the Miami Dolphins in Miami, but it was a competitive game. They lost 21-19, but they had close to 500 yards of total offense. Josh Allen still had 400 passing yards in that game, in the heat. So they 3-1 on the season. I think the win over the Ravens in week 4 was the biggest win of the season so far for the Buffalo Bills. Because as great as their first 2 weeks was, if you lose to the Dolphins and the Ravens and you're 2-2 in the first quarter of the season, it kind of takes away from how good they were in those first 2 weeks if they would have lost to the Ravens in week 4. But they took care of business, overcame a 17-point deficit, and their offense was sensational in the second half against the Baltimore Ravens. The Bills outscored the Ravens 13-0 in the second half. So that offense came alive in the second half of that game. So I think Josh Allen has been impressive in the first 4 weeks. 3 interceptions, not too bad. But his connection with Stephon Diggs is one of the best quarterback wide receiver connections that we have in the NFL. And honestly, all these quarterbacks that are MVP candidates, I would say that Josh Allen has the best receiver compared to his counterparts in Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts. I would say that Josh Allen has the best receiver compared to the MVP candidates. Patrick Mahomes, so far, this season, Patrick Mahomes has 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 1,106 passing yards. He's completed 66% of his passes. His quarterback rating is 108.4. And for Patrick Mahomes, his team is 3-1 on the season. Week 1, they blew out the Arizona Cardinals. They put up 44 in week 1. They followed that up in week 2. They put up 27 over the LA Chargers. That was a Thursday night matchup. Short week. Still put up 27 points. And then in week 3, they lost to the Colts 20-17. They only scored 3 points in the second half. But that was probably their worst half of the season against the Colts in week 3. Because in week 4, Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense was sensational. And they went up against the best defense in the NFL in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And remember I said in week 3, after watching the Packers only score 14 against that Buccaneers defense, and in the second half, that Packers offense got completely shut out. The Chiefs scored 14 points in the first quarter alone against the Buccaneers last week. They had 28 points at halftime, and they had 41 points total for the game. They had over 400 total yards for the game, and this all happened because of Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, he put on an MVP performance in that game. 23 of 37, 249 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And watching the game, it looked like Patrick Mahomes was playing by himself on the field, just playing catch with his receivers, like just throwing the ball back and forth with his receivers. It almost looked like a father playing in the backyard with his kids. That's how dynamic Patrick Mahomes was in their week 4 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, it was an MVP type of performance for Patrick Mahomes in week 4 against the Buccaneers, because the Buccaneers got the best defense in the NFL, and they had no answers for Patrick Mahomes. So I thought he had the best performance so far as a quarterback this season. Let's go to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He got 1,120 passing yards. He's completed 67% of his passes. He has 53 carries, 205 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. He's averaging close to 4 yards per attempt on the season. His team record is 4-0, and they are undefeated. And right now, Jalen Hurts has the Philadelphia Eagles as the number 1 team on the power rankings and the number 1 team in the NFC. Week 1, they took care of business against the Detroit Lions, 38-35, a high-scoring affair in Detroit. Week 2, they beat Kirk Cousins in the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football, 24-7. Jalen Hurts outplayed Kirk Cousins significantly in that game. Week 3, they handled Carson Wentz and the Washington Commanders 24-8 in Washington. And then in week 4, after trailing 14-0 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Eagles outscored the Jaguars 29-7 in the final 3 quarters of that game. And it was all because of the quarterback, Jalen Hurts. So all 4 of these quarterbacks have been sensational so far this season. But I believe right now, the best quarterback in the NFL and the NFL MVP as we speak is Patrick Mahomes. Because Patrick Mahomes, the performance that he had against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that is what solidified it for me, for him to be the NFL MVP in the first quarter of the season. I saw Aaron Rodgers score 14 points against that Buccaneers defense in the first half of the Packers-Buccaneers Week 3 game. Aaron Rodgers didn't score a single point in the second half of that game. Mahomes had 14 points in the first quarter against that Buccaneers defense. Had 28 points at halftime, 41 points total for the game. It was an MVP performance from Patrick Mahomes. And even without Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes has this Chiefs offense playing at an elite level. They still got Travis Kelce. They still got Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the backfield. And they're led by Andy Reid, one of the best play callers in the NFL. And this offense is still playing at a high level with Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster. That was the biggest question that we had for the Chiefs offense coming into the season. How were they going to make up for the production that Tyreek Hill gave them in Kansas City? How are they going to make up for that? Who was going to replace Tyreek Hill? And Patrick Mahomes, in the first 4 games of the season, with 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, I think he's been nothing short of sensational. And I believe that right now he's the best quarterback in the NFL. His ability to make plays in the pocket and accurately throw the football down the field, and also get out on the edges and make opposing defenders miss, is something that Patrick Mahomes is doing only at his level. As great as Lamar Jackson is at being able to elude defenders, Lamar Jackson cannot accurately throw the football down the field like Patrick Mahomes can. As great as Justin Herbert's arm strength is, he doesn't have the accuracy that Patrick Mahomes has.